All right, clap one on three. One, two, three. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of True Crime and Cocktails. We're so glad that you're here. As always, I am your host, Lauren Ash, and as always, I am joined by my co-hostess with the mostess, Christy Oxborrow. How you feeling?
Great.
Wonderful.
I didn't really I didn't really have anything. Usually I tie how I'm feeling into like something that's going on globally or
Yeah. Or
homily. I don't know. Lo
locally, words are hard. Doesn't matter.
Jesus. I was just thinking like globe throughout the world or in my own home. And so my brain was like, what's the word for local? Yeah. I mean, that goes without saying. I haven't been sleeping.
So
So,
sorry.
so that makes sense. Oh, it is what it is. Um, Part of the problem is recently the kids were off school for a full week,
Mm.
so I didn't set an alarm. And I
Um,
became this like kind of like dangerous lady, don't set an alarm, just little sleep slut.
you're n- you're a naughty little sleep slut.
Yeah, yeah. I already hear the merch requests.
Yep.
But I got it got like loose and buzzy, and I was like, let's stay up a little late. Let's not, what time are we getting up? Doesn't matter. Like, it was like summer vacation out of nowhere. Like, we haven't done this for a couple of months, not since Christmas. So I was elated.
Mm.
And then since then, my brain is like, I have to get up again? Come on. My brain does not like being told when to do things. It just wants to do them when it wants to do them.
Listen, I'm in Toronto and I don't know what happens when I come here. It's like I never fully it's like my internal clock never fully adjusts
Oh,
'cause it's
hmm.
like I'll sleep until 11 a.m. here, which is
Oh,
only 8 a.m. LA time.
right.
So that makes sense. But yeah, it's like I can't get to sleep. I'm like I like lay there until 2 a.m. Like I can't get to sleep, which again, 11 p.m. LA time, but it never gets
Right.
better. Like I can be here for like a month or 6 weeks at a time and I never flip over. But then if I go back, like I don't know. It's very strange.
Weird.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Listen,
I don't
I'm
think
going
I
to
can
the
handle it.
UK. I'm going
Oh,
to the
that's
UK,
going
which is
to
a whole
get
new time
worse.
zone. I'm going to be fucked up.
I don't know how I'm going to know what time you're at. I don't know what
It's
time you're at when you go to Toronto. And you're there a lot.
yeah, it's tough. Thank God for the World Clock app. That's all I'm going to
Yeah,
say.
that's helpful.
And by
That is
World Clock
helpful.
app, I just mean
Clock.
clock. The clock app.
Hey, hey, that's still like the world clock is a feature on the clock app. So I would say the world clock app. It's definitely a smarter thing to say than homily.
Well, you know what? What I'm hearing is we're both doing great. We're both doing the best we can.
Yeah, yeah, look, you got to find your wins
Yep.
where you can.
Yep.
Um, Typically that means unboxing.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's also so funny that I was like, oh, well, after this record, I'm kind of off for the weekend. Like I can like just do whatever, like silly little sleep slut. You know what I mean? Like do whatever. And so I was like, oh, this is exciting. And then since that time, in the span of like the last hour, I've written down 10 things I need to get done this weekend. And so I've told myself if I can accomplish them in one day, then I'm just free balling the next day. Free balling isn't the right word. How am I part of an audio medium?
You
It's
know what?
not great.
This is what brings people back. This is what brings people back,
Bless
for
them
sure.
for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a list of like 10 things I needed to get done today, And I was like, we sat down for this record, and I was like, man, I really killed that to-do list.
Hey,
I crossed off 2 things. I have so much to do.
that is two more than you had started this morning.
That's true.
So that's something.
That's true. It is something. It's just
Look,
not everything.
we're doing the best we can homily while we try not to think about globally. You know what I mean? When we just
Yeah.
need a minute, just a second, you know, to live in some sort of way where you're not like in a constant state of panic. Um, then you just like unbox.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
I recommend it. It's a fun time. What am I going to do with all these knickknacks? I don't know.
Paddywhack, give a dog a bone. Stupid. What I like is we're coming in with a real strong energy that is
Yeah.
unfettered. Like it kind of doesn't make
Mm.
sense. I don't know what's behind it, but
Mm.
somehow we're on the same level, so it feels like it's working.
Yeah. Oh, I've always appreciated how often we're able to just immediately match.
Match energy.
Like
Yeah.
however, wherever either of us are at, we just like we click that zoom and just boop, and we
Yep.
just match each other's energy immediately. And I couldn't be happier.
Same.
I mean, we are typically the same person, so it just makes sense that we would, if we're gonna have like a full cray cray moment, it makes
Hmm.
sense that it would be at the same time.
Like we always say, same person, different font.
Yeah, I love that so much. So I don't know how to tell you this,
Oh
but
no.
it means you too
Yeah.
are a bit of a sleep slut.
I'm a silly little sleep slut.
Why I feel the need to say it as many times. We're not even 10 minutes into this.
No.
I've said it at least 4 times. I feel like I'm losing my mind. I told myself I wasn't going to do any caffeine tonight because I was like, maybe that's it. I'll just go through this whole thing with water, really get myself in a good place, and then I'll just have a good solid sleep. Probably not. Probably not. And well, and also it's not helping. I cracked a I cracked a pop. Don't think I didn't, because immediately I was like, I'm not going to make it through all of the recording that we're doing tonight without caffeine. I'm going to need a little pep in my step. And by pep, I mean Pepsi.
That was almost like that scene in Wayne's World where they're like talking about how corporate sponsorship is selling out or whatever. To be clear, we're not sponsored by Pepsi.
We are not.
I mean, the amount I've
No.
talked about Diet Coke on the show, I feel like we probably wouldn't qualify.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, I wasn't going to, but it just, the second I said pep, my brain went, that's the next logical step.
And when you were saying sleep slut, and then you brought up that you cracked a pop,
Hmm.
what I was going to say was, pop that pussy, you little sleep slut. Why? Let it go. The moment passed. You didn't have to take us back there, Ash.
Not even 10 minutes in.
Pop
I
that
just,
pussy, you dirty little sleep slut. What on earth?
oh, see, but this is it. We need the laugh. We need the
Yep.
laughter. And I recorded some unboxings this week and I watched one of them back and went, who is that woman? It is unhinged for absolutely no reason. At one point, the car, because I did this one in the car, I turned the car off so there wouldn't be the noise of the heat running. Partway through the video, I turned the car on so I can start playing my iPod. And then I'm like fucking shoulder shimmying. And I was like, who is this woman? She time is not being kind to her. She's falling apart. And so I'm like, but at the end of the day, I was so jazzed to be opening what I was opening, but it's a tough watch to see someone fall apart in real time, especially when it's yourself. But I'm like, yeah, You could see she didn't sleep that week. So that'll be a fun thing because by the time this comes out, I think that video will have come out and people will be like, I've seen that. I was worried about her, but
See,
I've seen it.
you're not filming things as far in advance as I am. So, for example, um,
Oh, well.
I just released on my TikTok where I
Mhm.
do my unboxings. I just put out unboxing in bed part 36.
Oh, okay.
I have recorded as of today up to part 70.
Good for you.
70.
Oh, if you think I don't have, like, I already have videos for the beginning of April.
Yeah. Oh
Only
yeah, you
bec
do it.
only because I got a little carried away. You?
You, the little
I'd
sleep slut?
love to get carried away as a sleep slut. God, my goal is we say it 50 times in this episode. Um, yeah, I got a little I was just I was I only get so many days of the week that not that I'm allowed, but that I can be in the office during like I like natural light when I'm doing my unboxings and really because my husband's working in here, I don't come in here during the week. I only really come in here um on the weekend. So I record a bunch of those videos in a row throughout the course of a weekend. And then sometimes I just get like so into what I'm doing that I record so many and then I'm
Mm,
just like I recorded these far in advance. Whereas
right.
the field trip ones I do in the car, those well I have to be in the car to do it. So
Mm,
I'm further behind in those than I am in the other, but I try and record in advance. But yeah, I'm already like my brain is already like we should start planning for what you're going to unbox next year. Next year. Sit down. I have the full summer planned out of what I'm unboxing. Sit down. Go to sleep, you sleep son. Like
if there was,
this is
we
why
need a
I'm
little
awake.
ticker that bing, bing anytime we say it.
Yeah. Look, I only keep saying it because it does bring me joy, and I'm to a point in life where I'm just like, find your joy.
Yeah, listen, it's one of those things where it's funny. We keep
Yep.
doing it, it will get not funny. But if you
Yep.
keep doing it, it will get funny again.
It will bounce back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a comedy rule. Yeah.
Yeah. So eventually
Yep.
it'll be funny again.
I think it's still funny.
Oh, it's still cracking me up.
We haven't gotten to the dip yet.
No.
I'll let you know. What an asshole.
No,
Um, I have
I'm gonna need to be told.
I'll let you know when it's not funny anymore. What a dick. And then I'll let you know when it's had its beautiful resurgence. Now, you said something a minute ago because I apparently can't stop myself from going back in time. You said
Oh.
something about that you recorded this video and you're like, who is that woman? And this is bringing me
hmm
to something that I was going to bring up because I brought this up to you, but there's an update. But I brought this up to you once in text. And I posed this question to everyone listening. Have y'all heard about the whole Selena Gomez isn't Selena Gomez anymore thing? And that
hmm
apparently
hmm
they could steal the soul of someone. In this case, the internet is saying Gina Davis. What did Gina Davis do? Anyway, um, and they can take her soul and put it in the body of Selena Gomez, for example. Well, I don't know if you've seen this, but there was a video that came out today of Jim Carrey,
Oh no.
and he's at some French awards where he was getting some sort of award. And I will say, I saw the video before I saw any of the discourse about it. And when I saw the video, I was like, that doesn't sound like him. I was like, he's not
Oh.
acting like himself. So of course, I don't need to explain to you because he's somebody who's been like often outspoken about, the alleged whatever conspiracy theory type things that are going on in the world. He's talked about that a lot. He's also
Sure.
talked a lot about like, you know, what is reality, that the best role he's ever played is the role of Jim Carrey. Like there's all kinds of like, snake eating its tail paradox shit that he likes to talk about.
Sure.
So it was interesting because he just had such a different tone to him. Now, I interpret it as he's in another country where he doesn't really speak the language. And so he's trying to be like
Mhm.
polite as a Canadian. I
Oh,
was like, that's what I, just kind of assumed it was.
Sure.
Now the internet, and by the internet I mean probably just my TikTok feed, but my algorithm,
Mm.
uh now they're saying, well, he was next because he was speaking out all these years. Clearly it was him. I saw something else saying that it was a body double of his
Mm.
because the eye color's off or something.
I
I
just
think
want to
that,
know, like, if they think he got soul swapped,
yeah,
who do they think he is now?
they haven't been able to figure that out. They haven't been able to figure that out. We know, well, we can
Alec
cross Gina
Baldwin?
Davis. Gina Davis is off the list.
Well, if we're gonna Gina Davis, obviously my brain pairs her with Alec Baldwin.
Right, right.
So if Selena Gomez and Jim Carrey go into some sort of Beetlejuice reboot or something,
Mm,
then we know there's a problem.
yeah. Yeah, I guess I just have a lot of questions. Like, I haven't had the heart to Google, like, how do they do the soul swap? Like, I haven't, I haven't been able to do that because
I
I do worry about my own search history a little.
Oh yeah, I genuinely, truly, in my soul believed that when you said you couldn't bring yourself, or like that you were going to just ask, and I was like, if everybody's okay. Like all like the amount of conspiracy theories that have come out in the last like 2 weeks alone.
It does feel exponential.
Yeah,
It does feel exponential.
yeah. And
Yeah.
as soon as I had not heard I had heard the Selena Gomez one, but I hadn't heard that Gina Davis was involved. I'd heard Selena Gomez isn't Selena Gomez. I'd heard
I mean,
that.
people have been saying that for years.
Yeah. Um, and then after you and I talked about it, I saw a video that was like, this is Gina Davis. And I was like, oh, just leave her alone. Leave them both alone.
And I guess
Like,
my question is that, and again, I haven't had the heart to Google it, but it's only a matter of time. If Gina Davis's soul has been removed from Gina Davis's body,
yeah,
who's in Gina Davis's body? And does she
the old
maintain her?
Selena Gomez.
But I thought Selena Gomez was dead in order for this to work. And my question is,
No.
if your soul gets swapped into a new body, do you maintain
Yes.
your consciousness? Like, does Selena Gomez know that she's Gina Davis in Selena Gomez's body?
Someone needs to test Selena Gomez on Gina Davis's filmography. Because if she doesn't know, then I think case closed, Your Honor.
Defense, little sleep slut rests.
Oh, little sleep slut resting does sound right.
It
Uh,
does.
I,
Anyway, I don't know why I felt like I needed to bring it up, but I guess because it's just been on my mind and on my feed a lot.
oh, sure. Yeah. Look, I don't understand most of the videos that come out. I mean, there's just so many things, and I try so hard to not like think about them, but I do. Like again, I sent you a voice note earlier and I was like, here's the situation. I just saw this video. This is what's going on. I'm not going to look into it. And then I immediately sent you another one. I was like, so I've looked into it. And so it's like I can't be stopped.
It's my
Like,
favorite podcast. My favorite podcast. Certainly.
oh, I've like the amount of things that I've taken us on a journey through voice note in the last few days alone.
I love it.
It's
It's great when I'm in LA because I get them, I
mm,
save them. I save them for my, like people save a podcast episode and I save the voice notes. Or as I like to call them, my
mm,
personal podcast. So
of
yeah, it's nice
course.
for a drive, you know,
Variety. It's always variety, you know?
spice of life.
You never
Um,
know what she's going to talk about.
no, but that's the thing. Like you're saying, I saw this video. I haven't looked, I'm not going to look into it. You look into it. Well, I
Yeah.
think part of the reason is, for example, and this is going to be a very old reference at the time that this episode comes out because we're recording in advance, but there was the video that came out that someone shot in Montreal and they were like, and as we know, I refuse to call her by anything but Ghislaine. It's Ghislaine Maxwell. This is proof that
Oh.
she's not in prison and the person in
Mm-hmm.
prison is a fake, whatever. And then it was like, oh, it's actually come out that it was AI. But then people were like, okay, well, if it was AI, then release the original, release the video before
Oh,
you
yeah.
doctored it or whatever. And then, as far as I know, I'm not going to look into it. Give me 10 minutes. But as far as I know, the person isn't giving the original video. So then people are going, well, then the AI thing was a lie. And that's proof that the people got to him and told him he had to say it was AI in order to. And then I'm like, this is what the scientists talked about a couple years ago when it was like, if we can't believe anything, if we have to question absolutely every possible thing as being real
Yep.
or false, our brains will start to melt. Actually, like our brains will stop functioning because we can't. Reality is perception, and then when you question all of your reality, then your perception is that nothing is real, and then your brain's just going to short circuit, and then I think you're going to have bigger problems than turning turning on your tunes and shoulder shimmying
Oh,
in
yeah.
your
Look,
car.
look, at the end of the day, I'm still going to post that video because
Yeah.
while she gets a bit kooky in it, um, she's just showing a woman surviving in the world that in the current climate, in
Now
the global climate.
is the song you were shoulder shimmying to? I'm a survivor. I'm gonna make it.
It should have been.
Mm,
It was a song from a couple of years ago from Eurovision.
mm.
It was the Finland, I believe, was the country that put it out. So it's mostly not English, but I was super into it, and that's what I was listening to that day. Um, just to not stop Bad Bunny because I'm still really pumping out that Bad Bunny in the car.
Pumping it out.
I know that doesn't make any sense. But the child who's in the car with me the most isn't a big fan. That's not his style. And I'm like, that's more than fair. Um, and I feel bad that he hears it to and from school, and then home from school at the end of the day. Like he hears it, or I guess he just hears it to school and then home from school. So I'm hearing it 4 times. He's only hearing it twice. But he's then hearing it every night, all night, because my youngest has requested I make him a Bad Bunny playlist because he can't let the Super Bowl go, and I couldn't be happier for him. So I just gave him, we listened to a bunch of albums, and I was like, just let me know which one you like. And then I would put it in. I skipped all the ones that said explicit, even though I won't know. But like, who knows? But I was like, just to be safe. And so I was like, here. And yeah, he curated his own playlist. And then before I put it on his iPod, because yeah, there's multiple iPods in this home that get used daily, he was like, can we add one more song? And I was like, yeah. Is it like, do you know who sings it or whatever? And he goes, no, but like Bad Bunny kind of did it. And I went, is it a Bad Bunny song? He said, I don't think so. And I went, but Bad Bunny kind of did it. And he went, yeah. And I just went, it's Gasolina, isn't it? And he went, yeah. He's like, can we add that one? I'm like, to the Bad Bunny playlist. So we have a playlist called Bad Bunny Songs, and it's got a list of those and Gasolina.
Now, I think what's shocking me the most about this story
Hmm.
is that the middle child isn't interested in this music.
Um, I'm trying to think of the name. He's Tyler, the Creator, I think. Like that's his thing.
Really?
Yeah. He's really switched it up in the last few years because like when he was even like 5, 6 years ago, well, okay, a little longer, maybe when he was about like 8, his favorite artist was Rick Astley because he got into we were like clearing stuff out, I think, for my parents' house, and we found all these old cassettes. And he was like, "What's that weird thing?" And so I was explaining. I was like, "It's like a CD, but not." And so he heard "Never Gonna Give You Up," and he thought that was the greatest thing he'd ever heard. Then we found the cassette that was Rick Astley, and he was listening to it, and he had a favorite song that wasn't that. Like he had a song he liked better than that. I can't for the life of me think of what it was. But yeah, he was listening to tapes, and he was loving it, and he was just into all this older music, and I loved it. And then he hit about 12. And then suddenly it was like Tyler the Creator. That's his thing. And there are very specific other ones that I'm like, oh, you probably like this too. And he's like, no.
It's only Tyler the Creator.
It seems to be.
Interesting.
Because I'm like, what about Kendrick? That's kind of fun, right? And he was like, eh. So
Huh.
it's shocking to me that he's got his choice. And I'm like, okay. I also don't think he listens to music nearly as much anymore because he used to have the iPod that the younger one now has because he wasn't using it. And the younger one is like, yeah, make me a playlist with whatever, any sort of like song from a TikTok that he sees or something, or any video. He's like, I want that song. So he has like a playlist that are like these beautiful, like sweet, soft, like bedtime songs. And yet I go down there like super late at night and it's Bad Bunny playing in that room. He has a very mixed taste, and I hope that that stays because it
Well,
clearly left the middle one, in which like what you like, man.
yeah, I think the youngest, let's be honest, is kind of like your mini me. And so I
Hmm.
think it will probably stay that way because you're like that.
That I could see that.
Yeah.
I don't think he gets how much we're alike, but like we are so, we are so alike that he walked in the door today. He practically like kicked it in. He was like so ready to get in this house. And I was like, "Hey, how was school?" And he was like, "Oh, good." He went, "You know what tomorrow is?" And I was like, "Saturday?" And he was like, "Yeah." And and I was like, "And what?" Like I have no idea what we're talking about. And then I realized his team is going to be playing my team tomorrow. And he's like, "Bring it." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" He barely pays attention to scores, but I'm like, and I said, "Okay, well, my team's going to win." And he was like, "Well, my team won last time." And I was like, "He's going to say my team gets to win this time. That's so beautiful." And he went, "So I think I should win again." And so I'm like, "You're so competitive." God, he is me.
Yeah, it's very evident.
His love of McDonald's, the fact that we pretty much get the same order, it's, yeah, yeah, we're the same. And I'm okay with that. My legacy on this world will be mentally spiraling unboxing videos and a young boy that has has my spirit and a little bit of my kook, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. He also loves a collection.
Yeah.
And if he like if he'll do an unboxing, um, like he doesn't record them or anything, but he'll like open stuff and then immediately be like, where's the list that shows me all of them? And I'm like, there it is. He wants a checklist. Understood. That's how I live my life. And then he's immediately like, well, I'm gonna need the whole set. And I'm like, I understand. I understand. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is your future, bud. You're welcome.
How beautiful.
Yeah.
How beautiful.
He does also like a sleep in. So
I knew you were going to bring this back to sleep slut. Not funny anymore. It's not, it's dipped. It's dipped.
that's it. Okay,
Yep.
great.
It's
I
coming back. Don't
I,
worry.
I needed to know. I needed to know.
So listen, I was going to say what you drinking over there, but you've already your little slutty Pepsi, your
Yeah.
little pap.
Oh God. There are certain like voices you do that just crack me up beyond like whether you're meaning them to or not. They kill me. That one, the very like Chris Farley, my little pet.
My naughty little pet.
Yeah, that I love. But for the love of God, there was a video from last year. So one of the episodes we did, and we were talking about zinc and like women our age you need to take zinc or whatever it was. And just you got this voice that was like, "What does zinc do?" And the way you said it was so fucking funny to me. I've watched that clip over and over. Just to, what does zinc do? It was so funny to me.
I
Again,
love it.
the voices kill me.
What does zinc do?
I have no idea. I don't know that we ever figured it out.
No, I don't think we did either. Well, listen, I've got a Gatorade Zero, a water, and an emergency. Speaking of vitamins, and
Mhm.
I think I might give myself a little treat. I think I might get a Diet Coke on the break.
What I wouldn't give to be able to go out there and come back in here with a thick Reese cup with chips shoved inside. I've been dreaming about them for months and I can't find them anywhere.
They didn't discontinue them, did they?
I don't think so. I just cannot seem to find anywhere that has any in stock. And it's eaten me alive because I thought of it out of nowhere.
Reese peanut butter cups with potato chips.
It's salty, it's sweet. The chips are somehow still crunchy. It's
Hmm. They do appear to still exist, so that's good news.
that's positive.
That's good news. Oh yeah, there's the thick boy.
It's yeah, and it's because it has to be thick to get all that chip in.
That's what that's what she said. That's what
Oh,
she said.
look, not my best episode. There's
I'm
been,
loving it, man.
I think
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
my, I think my mental status is like really gonna show over the next couple of episodes because this week was a bit of a bear. So,
Mm.
but I got there and I'm here and I'm conscious. So that's what more could we possibly want? That's why you're gonna get things like Homily and Sleep Slut and
Yep.
me trying to make a Pepsi commercial in the middle of this.
You know what I find very alarming is I'm on Amazon.ca because I was like, oh, I would love to be able to just go beep, boop, and then be able to say right now in this moment, there's some coming to your house. That was what I wanted to do. But guess what?
They
They're
don't
not
have any.
there. And that's troubling.
Yeah, I don't love it. I've everywhere I search, they're like, "Oh, Walmart has them." And then it's like, "Oh, but they're out of stock right now." I'm like, "Then Walmart doesn't have them." I have a couple of stores I'm going to check tomorrow. We'll see.
Yeah.
Cuz
Yeah,
then I'm
this
like,
is
cuz what's going to happen? Oh no. What's At first I was alarmed, but now I'm maybe kind of into it. What's going to happen is I'm going to take peanut butter and I'm going to take powdered sugar and I'm going to mix those bitches together in a bowl, figuring out the amounts of each. It's going to be a thing, but I'm going to mix those. And then I'm going to take some like regular Lay's and I'm going to crush those bitches, sprinkle them in, mix it up, and I'm going to have this bowl that looks disgusting, but I bet it's going to taste amazing.
you're gonna love my first question.
Mhm.
Are Lay's the right choice?
I just need a regular chip.
Here's where my
Oh,
brain
you're
went.
thinking like an old Dutch.
I'm not actually. It's actually less about the brand. When you say Lay's, I think the flats, and I just think you need a ripple.
Interesting. So
So
you're
they
saying a wavy lay.
wavy lay.
Oh, I could wavy lay.
They're just slightly thicker.
Mm.
I
And
don't
they
know.
and they could hold up to the mixing of the.
Wait, wait, wait. That's not the answer.
Oh my
You want
God.
to know what the answer is?
The peanut butter is the dip and
Yes.
the chip is the spoon.
Yeah.
The edible spoon.
Yes. And that way you can try a few different kinds of chips. What if there's
It's
a flavored chip that's like a revelation in there?
this is gonna be like peanut butter salsa.
Ketchup chips. Tomato is a fruit. It could work.
I mean, we don't have time for this, but it's too late. Did you see the clip of, oh God, his name is leaving my brain. Fucking comedy legend.
I need anything else.
I know. Dumb and Dumber. Jeff Daniels. There we go. Scumbag. Um,
We got our scumbag.
there it is. I wasn't calling him a scumbag, just to be clear. So Jeff Daniels was on Stephen Colbert's show, and Stephen Colbert has the Colbert questionnaire,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like the 15 questions.
I want to make that
The
sandwich.
sandwich. Just quickly for people who have no idea what I'm talking about. Jeff, one of the questions is, what's your favorite sandwich?
Yes.
And so Jeff Daniels said a pita,
Pita bread.
but you don't pocket it, you just leave it as is. Then half of it, you put about a quarter inch of creamy peanut butter.
Correct.
Then you crush up sour, or is it sour cream and cheese or cheese and onion?
We're gonna have to double check on the chip
Yeah,
flavor.
but it's a very definitely some sort of cheese and onion, whether it's sour cream or not, I can't remember. But like a cheese and onion chip, and then you put barbecue sauce
Barbecue.
in it. And I saw a video of a woman who did make it, and she's like, it's actually not bad.
I saw a video of a man who made it who also said it wasn't bad. I was like, I want to try this.
I'm just like, I'm so scared of peanut butter with anything, says the woman who wants the peanut butter with the chips.
Well, I think the other thing I would say is you're so scared. I mean, you can just throw it out.
You're right. You're right. But here's the thing, I'm not fully in that mind frame in my life. I would like to be, but I'm still stuck in that whole, well, you can't throw it out. That would be wasting. You
Right.
spent money on it. It's like the things in my home that make me feel like I'm drowning. And it's like, well, I can't get rid of it. I spent money on it. And it's like, great. Now you can let it go. Like that's the thing. Once I can get that mentality and that attitude, peanut butter chip sandwiches all around.
It was cheddar and sour cream,
Cheddar and sour cream.
the Ruffles.
Got it. I think I don't know if they sell those here. I could be wrong, but I did see a cheddar and sour cream, and I thought it was Lay's, believe it or not. But I could be wrong, but you're right. Ruffle
These
is that's a sturdy chip. That's a dipper chip. Listen to me saying things as though that's normal.
oh yeah, this
Everyone knows what a dipper chip is.
absolutely.
Ridiculous. Just
You say ridiculous,
ridiculous.
I say glorious. Um, all right, let's get into it. We have
Oh.
decided to split this episode into two parts. Originally, it was just, we thought it might be one.
Mhm.
It's too much information. And of course, this case is the Laci Peterson saga. It is obviously something that has gripped most people in the true crime world, and even those who aren't, for decades at this point. And we're going to get into it in a two-part episode. This is part one. And this is also our February patrons poll pick. Over on patreon.com/true crime and cocktails, you can vote for one of the cases we will cover here on our main feed every month. So check that out as if you're interested. Also, we have recapped all of the Heated Rivalry episodes. The final one, I believe, is coming out next week. So if you're interested, go over there. You also don't have to subscribe. You can buy those individual episodes if you please. Check it out. Have a laugh. Join us for some
I,
fun.
I think the last one is coming out days before this.
That's right,
I
because
think
we're all discombobulated. Just go over there and figure it out.
we're recording earlier to
Things are
yeah.
being all out of order. It's confusing. But anyway, that's what's up. So for those who don't know about the Laci Peterson case, let's get us up to speed right now. Scott and Laci Peterson were often described as the perfect couple. They met in college, got married, and 5 years later, Laci became pregnant with their first child. It seemed like they were living a fairy tale life until Christmas Eve 2002, when Laci disappeared while 8 months pregnant. The case made national news, and shortly after Laci's remains were found, police zeroed in on Scott as the number one suspect. And since there is so much information to get through, this is going to be the first episode of a two-parter. In today's episode, we'll look at Scott and Laci's life, the events following Laci's disappearance, and all the times that Scott was sketchy. Buckle up. It's going to be one hell of a ride, baby.
Thank you so much for adding, baby.
I don't ever stray from the script. That's the first time, but it felt right.
It was necessary. It was necessary. Again, the plan was this was one episode. And then I started researching and was ready to start writing notes. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to fit this in to like under a certain number of pages. And so I texted you and I was like, this might have to be two. And I was like, that's cool. I'll only do like 25 pages and I'll split it between two episodes. Well, I've done 38. So we're in it. We're in it now.
And for context, episodes are usually like what, 15-ish?
Yeah, in the last year, I try to be between like 15 and 15 and 19-ish,
Well, so buckle in,
depending.
folks.
So with this one's gonna be hefty. The next one, I mean, the whole thing,
Yeah, it's a
it's
lot. There's a lot of information for
there's
sure.
just so much to cover that it just felt this was the only way. And then you're gonna laugh at how I spend the beginning of this. So, except for this disclaimer, which always brings it down, but always feels necessary. This episode will contain mentions of fetal death. So, trigger warning for those who need it. As part of my research for this episode, I watched the Netflix documentary American Murder, Laci Peterson, and the Peacock documentary Face to Face with Scott Peterson. I also read the books Blood Brother by Anne Bird and A Deadly Game by Catherine Cryer. There are so many other books about this topic, including ones by Sharon Roca, Amber Fry, and one of the jurors from the trial. I didn't get to them all, though. Doing two documentaries, which were 6 hours apiece, and two books, and writing two full episodes in the span of like 6 days was enough. It was as
Oh,
far,
God, yeah.
I'm so sorry. It was as far as I could go. So, today's episode takes place in California. It was originally known as the Grizzly Bear State, but after wiping out the entire California grizzly bear population, the nickname was changed to the Golden State in reference to the infamous gold rush of the 1840s. The grizzly bear has been on the state flag since California was founded, and even though the California grizzly bear was made extinct in 1922, it was chosen as California's official state animal in 1953. None of that makes sense to me. California is the only U.S. state to have hosted both the Summer and Winter Olympics. To be more specific, it hosted the Winter Olympics in 1960 and the Summer Olympics in 1932, 1984, and coming up in 2028. The California state motto is Eureka. I don't know why I said it like that. Not to be confused with the sci-fi show Eureka, which was filmed in Canada from 2006 to 2012. Death Valley, California was the location of the highest temperature ever recorded. On July 10th, 1913, the temperature soared to 134 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 56.7 degrees Celsius. A random fun fact, Beverly Hills, California started out as a lima bean ranch.
It's cute.
I don't know why I'm charmed by that, but I am. California is home to the San Francisco Cable Car, which was the first moving national historic landmark in the United States. It is also home to Kings Canyon, which is over 2,000 feet deeper than the Grand Canyon.
Hmm.
For my stats nerds, at its max depth, the Grand Canyon is 6,093 feet. Kings Canyon, 8,200.
Wow.
Yeah. Things invented in California include, but are not limited to, blue jeans, tiki bars, WD-40, skateboarding, popsicles, lasers, Disney, Cobb salad, slot machines, martinis, wetsuits, craft beer, iPhones, and Barbie. California was also the birthplace of Carl's Jr., In-N-Out Burger, Jack in the Box, Fat Burger, Taco Bell, Panda Express, and McDonald's. As you can imagine, the list of famous people born in California is painfully long, so I have only chosen a small, very specific amount of people. Christina Applegate, Jack Black, Linda Cardellini, Nicolas Cage, Julia Child, Noah Wiley, Robert Stack, Thora Birch, Will Ferrell, Laura Dern, Carrie Fisher, Tony Goldwyn, Diane Keaton, Lisa Kudrow, Tony Hawk, Christina Ricci, Anton Yelchin, Zendaya, Zendaya? Do I know which way I should say that? Candy Bergen, and shockingly, Ben Affleck. He is known for his thick Boston accent, but he was born in Berkeley, California. His family moved to Massachusetts when he was 3.
No shit.
Right? I had no idea. I was like, what about his brother Casey? His accent's so thick. They had moved before Casey was born. So he was born there. So I'm like, that makes sense. But I'm just shocked. I
3
had
is still, young enough to pick it up, but yeah, that is
apparently
shocking.
so. Yeah, I had no idea.
Hmm.
Also born in California, Cam York, aka one of my beloved flyers, as well as author John Steinbeck, who, if you Google photos of him back in the day when he was, he kind of looked like Paul Walker, who was also born in California. Hmm. Musicians from California include, but again, are not limited to Weird Al Yankovic, Cher, Coolio, Green Day, The Beach Boys, Blind Melon, Third Eye Blind, Wallflowers, Linkin Park, Journey, Blink 182, The Doors, Guns N' Roses, Cypress Hill, The Eagles, The Monkees, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Weezer, Stone Temple Pilots, Offspring, and Hoobastank. I don't even know.
I never would have
Mhm.
anticipated. I mean, a classic band.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, it was some of these, I mean, all of them were chosen very specifically, but Hoobastank, I was like, I'm going to want to say that. I'm going to want to say that out loud, just like I'm going to want to say Candy Bergen, and I won't let Candy go.
And you shouldn't.
The
You
amount of
shouldn't.
times I naturally call her Candy instead of Candace is unsettling. Ah, so now we got the fun bit out of the way. Now we're getting into the stuff that's going to get uncomfortable sometimes.
Yep.
And that's just what we do on this show. So, Laci Denise Roca was born May 4th, 1975, in Escalon, California. Her parents, Dennis and Sharon Roca, were high school sweethearts who had a son, Brent, in 1971. The couple ran a dairy farm together, but when Laci was about 2 years old, they divorced, and Sharon moved the kids to Modesto. Around 1978, Sharon met Ron Gransky, and the couple remained together for nearly 50 years. Around 1980, Brent went to live with his father, while Laci stayed in Modesto with Sharon and Ron. Laci attended Sonoma Elementary and La Loma Junior High before graduating from Downey High School in 1993. She was smart, popular, athletic. She participated in numerous clubs at school, as well as basketball, softball, and cheerleading. In the fall of 1993, Laci enrolled at California Polytech State University, or Cal Poly, as it's usually called. It's located in San Luis Obispo. Obispo? Oh, there we go. Laci majored in ornamental horticulture, and at a party in 1994, she met agricultural business student Scott Peterson. Scott Lee Peterson was born October 24th, 1972, in San Diego. He was the youngest child of Lee Peterson and Jackie Latham, who described Scott as perfect and the golden child of the family, which is slightly uncomfortable given that he was one of 7 siblings. Lee and Jackie met when they each had 3 children from previous relationships, and after getting married in 1971, they had Scott, whom they said could do no wrong. Scott has 6 older siblings, although they weren't all raised together. But this is a conversation for the next episode because we do not have time today. But never fear, we're getting into the Petersons a bit deeper in part 2. So Scott and Laci meet at a party in 1994. They didn't really connect in that moment. And then soon after, they ran into each other at the Pacific Cafe restaurant in Morro Bay, where Scott was working as a waiter. The couple quickly started dating, despite having little in common. It was said they just didn't have similar interests, but Scott was smitten immediately. He overwhelmed Laci with flowers and trips and affection, which nowadays people would call love bombing, but the 90s were a simpler time, and back then that sort of behavior seemed romantic as opposed to concerning. For their first Christmas together, which was, from the sounds of it, about a month after they met, Laci gifted Scott a golden retriever puppy that they named Mackenzie. 2 years later, in December 1996, Scott proposed, and 9 months after that, they were married at the Sycamore Mineral Springs Resort in San Luis Obispo. And then they honeymooned in Tahiti. Shortly before the wedding, Laci graduated and took a job in Prunedale, which is roughly 133 miles north of Morro Bay, where Scott was living until his own graduation in June 1998. Scott was then offered to apply for a job in Ohio, but according to his parents, it didn't fit with Scott's lifestyle. So instead, Scott and Laci decided to convert an old bakery into a burger restaurant near the college campus. Thanks to his previous experience in the restaurant industry, Scott was able to get food supplies at a discount as well as used kitchen equipment. They fixed the whole place up themselves, and when they needed a vent installed, which was required by California law, Scott went to Los Angeles and took a certification course just so he could install that vent himself. The restaurant was called The Shack and was said to be fairly successful. Laci and Scott started looking to buy a house, but the prices in San Luis Obispo were kind of out of their range. Laci suggested they move to Modesto because her aunt was a real estate agent there, and it would mean she'd be closer to her parents when they started having children. So in 2000, Laci and Scott sold the shack and moved to Modesto, where they bought a three-bedroom home on Covina Avenue. Scott got a job as the West Coast representative for Trade Corp, an agricultural supply company who sold things like fertilizer, chemical nutrients, and irrigation systems. Scott seemed to enjoy the job and he made good money. The problem was a lot of his customers were like big farms and flower growers. So he was traveling throughout California, New Mexico, and Arizona quite a lot. So he wasn't home very often. Laci got a job as a part-time substitute teacher, and the couple spent time renovating their new house, including adding a pool to the backyard. Early into their marriage, Laci said she wanted children, but Scott said he wasn't interested. A few months later, he changed his mind, and in 2002, they discovered that Laci was pregnant. She immediately started attending prenatal yoga classes as well as Lamaze. When they discovered they were having a boy, they painted the nursery light blue and decorated it in a nautical theme. By the time of Laci's baby shower on December 10th, it seems they had chosen the name Connor. On December 24th, Scott woke up around 8 a.m. He claimed that Laci had been up for an hour by the time he got up and came out to the living room. He said by then she'd already had breakfast because she eats right away when she gets up because of nausea. And as a former pregnant woman, I can tell you that makes sense. I get that. I get that. You gotta right away. Um, at at 9, the couple watched Martha Stewart Living, which was Laci's favorite show. Scott said he initially planned to go golfing, but then changed his mind because it was only 38 degrees Fahrenheit that morning, which is about 3 degrees Celsius. So yeah, a bit cold for golf, I guess.
Hmm.
So what was Scott's new plan? To go fishing. Because nothing is warmer than taking a boat out on the open water. So right away, I'm skeptical as hell. Because in my opinion, if it's too cold for golf, it is certainly too cold for fishing. What was Laci's plan for the day while Scott was out? She was going to mop the floors, get groceries, do baking, and walk the dog. However, Recently, Laci had been getting tired more easily, so both her doctor and her yoga instructor recommended that Laci hold off on walking the dog until after the baby was born. Is it possible she still planned on walking the dog? Sure, but we don't know. So Scott said he left around 9:30. He then stopped in at his work where he read through emails and sent one at 10:30. He then hooked up the 14-foot aluminum boat which was stored at his work warehouse, and at 11:30 he drove to Berkeley Marina, which is roughly 82 miles away. According to his receipt at the marina, Scott arrived at 12:54. He said after getting his boat in the water, he went out about a mile past an island, which would later be identified as Brooks Island. Scott then spent about an hour out on the water, then went back to the shore, put his boat back on the trailer, and headed home. At 2:15, Scott called Laci from the road, once to the home phone, once to her cell phone, and he told her he was on his way home, but he wasn't able to pick up the Christmas gift that was for either her grandfather or his. I don't know which one. And since he couldn't pick it up, he was basically asking her to do it. In the grand scheme of this case, this is not a detail. This does not matter, but it enrages me. If Scott was supposed to pick up that gift, he was either outright asked to do it or he volunteered to do it. But instead of doing it, he went fishing and then added the gift buying to his wife's plate. He could have easily kept an eye on the time to ensure he'd be able to make it to the farm before they closed, especially given that Vela Farms, where the gift was being purchased, was located just outside Modesto, and Scott could have easily stopped there on his way back from the marina. I don't know what route he took, but he likely took Interstate 580 from the marina, roughly 50 miles into that. Interstate 580 splits into two. It veers, so 580 then goes right, and you continue to the south of Modesto, or you just continue straight and it turns into Interstate 205, which takes you to the north end of Modesto, where the farm is located. Now, I understand the Petersons' home on Covina Avenue was closer to the south end of town, but why wouldn't he take the northern route so he could stop by the farm on the way? According to Google Maps, to go from the marina to the farm and home, taking that northern route is roughly 91.2 miles. To go from the marina directly home using the southern route is 84.7 miles. So he's not even saving himself a ton of time by taking another route. Plus, he would be doing the thing he was either asked or said he would do. Even if we're adding in a stop at the warehouse to drop off the boat, from the marina to the farm to the warehouse to home, 92.7 miles on the northern route. From the marina to the warehouse home on the southern route, 85.4 miles. So again, we're talking like 7 miles, while not doing the thing he was asked to do. Instead, he just dicked around in a boat and expected his pregnant wife to pick up the slack. And we don't have time to get into the whole invisible labor discussion because I will just get more enraged and more off topic. And again, this is a very insignificant detail compared to what is coming. So why am I focusing on it? Because my OCD tells me what I'm focused on. I have no say in it. This is the hyperfixation of the moment. And I just wanted to, I didn't want to, I had to talk about it. And then two, because Scott gave a recent interview within the last couple of years. It's specifically in the Face to Face documentary. And he was asked about that day. He said, quote, "I drove away expecting to come back that afternoon and have our wonderful Christmas together after we both had fun mornings." Again, Laci's plan for the morning was cleaning, errands, baking, and walking the dog. Scott's plan, fishing. Does it sound like they were both planning to have fun? No, it sounds like Scott was planning to have fun and Laci was stuck with the chores. And yes, one could argue that Laci enjoyed doing some of the things she planned to do, but to me, it just makes Scott appear arrogant. Again, does this detail matter? Probably not. It rubbed me the wrong way, and I just wanted to share it because that's who I am as a person. Now that we've got that out of the way. So Scott drives back to Modesto. He stopped in Livermore on the way to buy $13 worth of gas. He got back to the warehouse around 4:30, unhooked the boat, and headed home, arriving around 4:45. When he entered the backyard, he noticed the dog Mackenzie was in the yard, attached to her leash. He thought nothing of it, so he took the leash off the dog and went inside. The back door was unlocked. Scott then saw a mop bucket that was there. He picked it up, he took it outside, dumped the water on the lawn, then went to the kitchen where he had some leftover pizza and a glass of milk. Scott then went directly to the washing machine where he removed a load of rags, placed them on the dryer, then took off his jeans, t-shirt, and sweatshirt and put them in the washer and immediately started that load. According to Scott, he got rained on during his fishing trip and his clothes were still wet when he got home. Scott then went to have a shower, and it was only after that did he realize that Laci wasn't home, even though her car was parked outside. He later said he just assumed she was at her mother Sharon's house, even though they were supposed to go to Sharon's house that night at 6 p.m. So right away, I am skeptical for so many reasons. He randomly decides to go fishing that morning more than 80 miles away while his wife, who is 8 months pregnant at the time, is going to clean and run errands on her own. And then he gets home. He sees her car. She's not there. And his first thought is, she probably is at her mother's, even though we're literally going there in less than an hour. At 5:17 p.m., Scott calls Laci's parents to ask if Laci was there. They said no, they hadn't seen her. So Scott says, well, I guess she's missing. They told Scott to call Laci's friends. Well, Sharon immediately drove to the park where Laci typically took the dog for walks. Laci's stepfather, Ron, called 911 to say that Laci had disappeared while walking her dog and that the dog had returned home on its own, still on its leash. Laci was described as 5'1" with dark hair, dark eyes, and 8 months pregnant. According to the 911 operator's note, Scott then called himself to say he was at the park searching for his wife. So an officer was dispatched to the park at 5:48 p.m. to meet up with Scott, and 3 more officers were dispatched to Scott and Laci's home 10 minutes later. Once people heard that Laci was missing, whether they knew her personally or not, they dropped everything to immediately help with the search. Hundreds of people came out on foot, on horseback, in boats, and in helicopters, searching as much area as possible. Scott's parents didn't help with the initial search, but that's because Scott didn't tell them that Laci was missing until the next day. And yeah, maybe he was panicked and not thinking clearly. It just feels so odd to me to not call your parents immediately when your wife is missing. But maybe that's just me. Once Scott's parents learned the news, they immediately tried to help. Scott's mother, Jackie, used to work in public relations, so she used her contacts to send out a wire to news agencies trying to spread the word about Laci. And people were so gripped by her story that Laci's disappearance became the #1 news story across the country. Many people ask, why did the country become so immediately invested in Laci's story when so many people go missing every day without so much as a newspaper headline? Honestly, I think it was a combination of the fact that Laci was pregnant, Laci and Scott were an attractive, picture-perfect couple, and the fact that it was Christmas time. It was kind of like the perfect storm. And it's incredibly frustrating to see a case like Laci's make national news when similar victims go missing and the public doesn't hear about it. Case in point. In May 2002, so just a few months before Laci disappeared, 24-year-old Evelyn Hernandez went missing in San Francisco, which is about 90 miles west of Modesto. At the time, Evelyn was 9 months pregnant and last seen May 1st at home with her 5-year-old son, Alex, who was also missing. Several days later, Evelyn's wallet was found in a gutter 10 miles from her home. Inside the wallet was $40 cash and a check made out to Evelyn. So right away, we know robbery's not the motive. The wallet was conveniently found near a limousine company where Evelyn's boyfriend, 36-year-old Herman Aguilera, worked. It turns out, while Evelyn was excited about having Herman's baby, Herman was married to someone else, like living with his wife as though he absolutely wasn't stepping out on her. Police interviewed Herman, who said he was working on the night that Evelyn and Alex disappeared. When Herman's wife was questioned, she said Herman was working that night and then came home and they watched TV together before going to bed. According to Alta Online, Evelyn didn't know that Herman was married when she got pregnant, but Herman's wife knew about the relationship her husband was having with Evelyn. It's uncertain if she knew about the pregnancy or not. On July 24th, more than 2 months after Evelyn and Alex were reported missing, Evelyn's partial remains were recovered from the San Francisco Bay. Her head and both arms were missing. Neither Evelyn's unborn baby nor Alex have ever been found. Evelyn Hernandez was described as charismatic, surrounded by light, and loved being a mom. She was just 24 at the time of her death. Alex Hernandez, who was 5 at the time, was described as Hispanic, 4 feet tall, 45 pounds, with brown hair and brown eyes. About 2 months after Evelyn's remains were found, Herman stopped cooperating with police and hired a lawyer who released a statement saying that Herman is saddened by the death of his close friend. Even though Herman was older than Evelyn and married and had repeatedly said he didn't want the baby, somehow he was never publicly named a suspect in Evelyn and Alex's disappearances. As of this record, the case remains unsolved. When Evelyn and Alex first disappeared, police suggested they probably just skipped town. When Laci Peterson first disappeared, police brought out helicopters to help with the search. The cases were also treated completely differently in the media. According to Alta Online, in the span of just 4 months, the San Francisco Chronicle published 32 stories about Laci Peterson, including 4 that were on the front page. But in that same time frame, the Chronicle only published 4 stories about Evelyn. None of those made the front page. So why the big difference in coverage and police attitude? Well, there is the fact that Laci had a very large support system who were willing to get in front of cameras and do whatever they needed to do to get Laci's face plastered everywhere. There's also the fact that Evelyn was an immigrant from El Salvador who entered the U.S. legally, to be clear. And Laci, while her father was Portuguese, she was mostly considered Caucasian. It's just so disappointing that there isn't more public information about Evelyn's case. The lack of information is why we don't have enough to do a full episode on just Evelyn and Alex. Whereas there's so much information about Laci's case known publicly that we have to do 2 episodes to get it all in. Every missing persons case should be treated with the same level of intensity and public awareness in the hopes of it being solved, especially those which involve vulnerable people like children and pregnant women. Evelyn and Alex deserved better. So Laci's family and friends turned the conference room at the Red Lion Hotel into a volunteer command center where they made countless flyers and coordinated efforts in a search for Laci. Some of the volunteers said that Scott would make jokes, which kind of made them uncomfortable. And a lot of people are like, ooh, that means he's not caring. And I get it. But he also could be someone who maybe makes things light when he's uncomfortable, because I know I do that a lot. where there's like a very intense moment and then I like fart on purpose or something. You know what I mean? Like
You fart on purpose?
I've never farted on purpose in my life. Again, like I couldn't think of an example, but just like what does zinc do? Again,
Oh
I
my
hear that
God.
in my head all the time. So, ay, ay, ay. So at 9:55 p.m. on Christmas Eve, Detective Al Bruchini got a call asking him to come help with a missing persons case. When he arrived on the scene, he was shocked to see just how many people were there helping with the search. At this point, Laci had been missing for about 12 hours. Um, so it kind of seems weird that in that moment, Scott asked the detective if he was going to bring out any cadaver dogs. Now, is it possible he confused like tracking dogs with cadaver dogs? Maybe. I don't know. It's the fact maybe he just thinks cadaver dogs search for anybody. I don't know. But that was not a great look. Um, Scott told Al that he'd been fishing all day and that Laci said she was going to walk the dog and get some groceries for the dinner they were having at Laci's parents' house. Laci's purse and wallet were found in the hall closet. Her cell phone was found in her car, which was parked outside the house. So it's clear Laci went missing from the house, not while out running errands. Maybe she went missing while walking the dog? Well, according to neighbor Karen Service, that morning Karen was heading to a store when she noticed Mackenzie, the Petersons' dog, running around the street dragging a leash. Karen put Mackenzie in the Petersons' backyard and closed the gate. She noted that the leash was muddy enough she had to go back inside to wash her hands and then come back out to continue with the errands she was running. She had a receipt from the first store that she stopped at, which was listed the time as 10:34 a.m. So police said based on the distance to Karen's house, they estimate that Karen spotted the dog approximately 10:18 a.m. The last known person to see Laci was Scott, who claimed he left the house at 9:30. His cell phone pinged a tower heading towards his warehouse at 10:08 a.m. The initial theory was Laci took the dog for a walk after Scott left and someone grabbed her, causing the dog to return home. But since Laci's running shoes were still at the house, police wondered if it meant that Laci was taken from the house some point after Scott left. Police then learned that the house directly across the street from Laci and Scott had been robbed. The Medina family lived at 516 Covina Avenue and had been out of town visiting family. They left December 24th at 10:30 in the morning and arrived back home on December 26th at 4:30 in the afternoon. When they got home, they found the side door of their house had been kicked in and their house was ransacked. Several items, including two handguns, some power tools, a safe containing $3,000 cash, and jewelry worth more than $50,000 was taken. A witness reported seeing a van outside the Medina house on the 24th, but her statement kept changing. At first, she said the van was white, then it was tan, then it was brown. But maybe the van was linked to the robbery. Well, an anonymous tip led police to two potential suspects in the robbery, Donald Pierce and Stephen Todd. When they learned that police were trying to see if the robbery was connected with Laci's disappearance, Pierce and Todd immediately started to cooperate. They admitted to breaking into the Medina house. They said they did so on the 27th, but I mean, the Medinas came home on the 26th, so obviously these guys did not have the right date. Pierce and Todd then said that from the best they can tell, they believe the break-in occurred on the 26th between 3:30 and 6:30 in the morning. The police determined that both Pierce and Todd had alibis for the time of Laci's disappearance, so they were charged with the robbery and removed as suspects in Laci's case. Items taken from the Medina house were found at the homes where Pierce and Todd were staying at the time. Neither one had anything that linked them to Laci. Believing that Laci was taken from her own home, Detective Al brought in a search warrant as he wanted to double check for any evidence that someone other than Scott and Laci had been in the house. Scott's response to the warrant: "Where's the trust, Al?" He also just kept, apparently, from like right away, just always called him Al. And as someone who calls Candace Bergen Candy, I have no leg to stand on here. But it just feels in that situation that it feels weird. Um, Police searched the Peterson home, but found no sign of forced entry, no sign of a struggle, and no sign that a crime scene had been cleaned up. Also, no sign that anyone other than Scott and Laci had been in that house. There were small specks of blood in the bedroom near the bed. They were determined to be a match to Scott. He told Diane Sawyer later on that he works on farms. His hands are always cut in some way. So, of course, his blood is going to be everywhere. He even pointed out that he cut his knuckle on a toolbox in his truck on the morning he went fishing. So, I guess that also explains why there was a speck of Scott's blood on the interior driver's door of Scott's vehicle. Scott was taken to the police station to be officially interviewed. He gave them a rundown of the day, how he watched Martha Stewart with Laci before going fishing. Um, when detectives asked why Scott chose to go fishing, he claimed it was a morning of decision, that he just wanted to get the boat in the water since he hadn't used it since buying it weeks prior. But if that's true, and he only wanted to test the boat out briefly, why didn't he go somewhere closer to home? There was fishing access at Turlock Lake, which was 26.2 miles from their home. And there was fishing at the Modesto Reservoir Regional Park, which was only 18.3 miles from their home. If the fishing trip was simply to get the boat in the water, why go to Berkeley Marina, which was nearly 90 miles away? I guess there's a possibility he just wanted to be alone, or he didn't want to be at the house, so he made the excuse and chose a further location just to extend how long he could be away from home. That's possible. When Laci's mother, Sharon, heard that Scott had been fishing, she was shocked because she didn't realize that Scott even had a boat. When she confronted Scott about it, he claimed the boat was a surprise for Ron, Sharon's husband. The plan was so that Ron could one day take Connor fishing, and then the child could bond with his grandfather. If this is true, why buy the boat before Connor was even born? Like, that feels like it's going to be a while before
Yeah.
that kid is in that boat. Um, but also, if it was a surprise for Ron, are we talking like, was it a Christmas gift? Because it's wild to wait until the day before Christmas to test it out when you've had the boat for weeks. But also, Scott claimed it was a last minute decision to take the boat out. Well, if you didn't test it then, when were you going to test it before giving it to Ron? Or I guess it was just supposed to be the boat's ours, but it's meant for you, which is weird. I,
Yeah. Was it like this is a gift for you, or was like this is what we thought it was going to be? Like,
yeah, I
it's weird.
he was never very clear about it. Uh, on December 20th, Scott bought a 2-day boat license that was good for the 23rd and the 24th. So a day of decision that he planned 4 days in advance. And he only did it because it was cold out. Along with the license, Scott also bought some fishing lures. When asked about bait, Scott said he didn't use bait when fishing. He told police he used a silver lure, but when the boat was checked, police found the lure still sealed in its original package. And speaking of the boat, police got a search warrant for the warehouse where Scott worked and stored his boat. Weirdly enough, the cover for the boat was discovered in the shed at Scott and Laci's house. Why would he take it home and not leave it with the boat? Allegedly, a leaf blower was placed on top of the cover and it somehow spilled gasoline all over the boat cover, which is weird, but also a really good way to maybe block a scent of some sort, maybe.
Yeah.
Allegedly. At the warehouse, detectives discovered a flatbed trailer, which was covered in cement rings. Scott had purchased a bag of cement from Home Depot to make his own boat anchor. It looked like he poured cement into like either a paint can or a large coffee can, then placed a curved piece of rebar in the top like a handle. Based on the cement rings on the trailer, it looked like Scott had made 5 anchors. He claims he only ever made one. That one was sitting in the boat, but there was no rope attached to it. So, how are you going to use an anchor if you can't attach it to your boat? Also, Scott indicated he'd bought an 80 to 90 pound bag of cement, and after making the single anchor, he just threw the rest of the bag away. He said he had seen similar ones in San Diego in the past, and it was cheaper to buy $3 worth of cement and make his own rather than spend like $30 or more on a store-bought anchor.
That's where we're saving cash.
Right? Like, yeah, just again, one thing after the other with this guy. Um, on January 5th, police divers searched the Berkeley Marina and found 2 homemade anchors, just like the one that Scott had made. However, they didn't think they were connected to the case, so they tossed them back into the bay and they've never been recovered
Mm.
again. Also found in the boat was a pair of needle-nose pliers, which had 2 dark hairs wrapped around them. The hairs were consistent with the hairs collected from a brush that belonged to Laci. It was determined the hair did not belong to Scott. Therefore, the only logical explanation was the hair belonged to Laci. One final thing about the boat, it was determined that on December 8th, Scott used a computer to search for the currents and depths of the San Francisco Bay, specifically around Brooks Island. The following day, he bought the boat. December 24th was the first time he took it out on the water. The timing of the boat and Laci's disappearance is sketchy at best. Scott agreed to do a polygraph test, but the next day said he changed his mind after his father advised him not to go through with it. And speaking of sketchy behavior, Scott also sold Laci's car about a month after she went missing. In an interview with Time magazine, Scott's father, Lee, claimed that a week before Laci's disappearance, Scott and Laci had been talking about trading her car in for something newer. So to him, it wasn't strange to suddenly get rid of Laci's vehicle. He also spoke with a realtor about selling the house, saying, "There's no way that if Laci comes back, we're ever going to stay here." And while we're on the sketchy train, I will also add that after Laci's disappearance, Scott returned to the bay where he'd went fishing on December 24th, but not to go fishing. He returned 5 separate times in a matter of weeks just to stand there and look out at the water just for like 2 or 3 minutes, and then he'd leave. There is also the fact that Scott claimed that Laci was going to go buy groceries that day. But according to a Trader Joe's receipt that was signed by Laci, she had already purchased the groceries on the 23rd. And the fact that Scott refused to do any sort of interview when Laci first disappeared, I mean, all of this sketchy behavior, some suggested that Scott made Laci disappear, but simply because he wasn't interested in dealing with alimony and child support following a divorce. But from the outside, Scott and Laci seemed really happy, so there were no signs that either had ever considered a divorce. It just, it turns out they might not have been as happy as everyone thought. A friend of Laci's claimed that Laci and Scott attended a party on December 7th. At this party, Laci told her friends she was upset that Scott was always traveling for work and that her biggest issue was he had plans to go to Europe at the end of January. And since she was due, Around February 10th to 16th, she didn't like the idea of him being away when she was so close to having the baby. According to the friend, Laci said she outright asked Scott to cancel that trip. We don't know if he did or not prior to her disappearance. Police set up a tip line for people to call with information regarding Laci Peterson. More than 11,000 tips came in, and on the morning of December 30th, a woman called to say that Scott Peterson was her boyfriend and that they spoke on the phone daily. That woman was 27-year-old Amber Fry. Amber was a massage therapist and a single mother to a nearly 2-year-old daughter who was living in Madeira, which is roughly 73 miles southeast of Modesto. When police went to meet Amber, she was able to give them several photos of her and Scott together, as well as letters that Scott had written to her. Amber said her friend Sean introduced her to Scott in November 2002. Sean met Scott at a California Association of Pest Control Advisors trade show in Anaheim in October 2002. Sean said Scott was charming and polite, and while hanging out in a small group, Scott asked Sean what he could write on the back of his name tag to attract women. Sean suggested that Scott write, "I'm rich." Scott decided to write HB, which apparently stood for horny bastard.
Because that's going to for sure just get the women just running to you.
Just panty dropper right there. What an idiot. Ah, so Sean claims that Scott asked her if she thought that there was only one person that you were meant to be with forever. He then said he just wanted to find the one person who would make him happy, as he thought he'd found the right person, but it hadn't worked out. Scott said he was sick of bimbos and didn't like one-night stands. He just wanted someone intelligent who he could spend the rest of his life with. He said that his office was in Modesto, but he was rarely there, so he had places he stayed in Sacramento and San Diego. Scott then asked Sean if she had any friends that she could set him up with, and at the time, Sean said no, but they exchanged business cards to potentially stay in touch. Well, a month later, Sean got a message from Scott. The two of them started talking a few times a week, simply as friends, since Sean was engaged. Sean thought that Scott was a decent guy, so she thought if he was serious about settling down, she did have a friend she would introduce him to. So Scott and Amber were introduced on November 20th. They hit it off and immediately started dating. Amber asked Scott if he'd ever been married. He said no. She asked if he had children. He said no. She asked if he wanted children, given that she was a single mother, and Scott said that Amber's daughter would be enough for him. Amber truly believed she had met the one. In early December, Sean heard a rumor that Scott was married. She confronted Scott and told him if he didn't tell Amber, she would. When Amber asked Scott if he was married, he said no, not currently. He claimed he lost his wife, and this Christmas would be the first holiday without her. This conversation occurred on December 9th, the same day that Scott purchased the boat. But I'm sure that's just a coincidence. The following weekend, Scott went as Amber's date to a holiday party. He showed up at the house with 3 dozen roses. That same weekend, Laci was back in Modesto attending a friend's Christmas party, alone. On December 23rd, Scott and Amber spoke on the phone. Scott said he was duck hunting with his father in Maine. The truth was, he was at a doctor's appointment with his pregnant wife. Amber said she didn't hear from Scott at all on December 24th, which was unusual, as they spoke every single day. But he called her twice on the 25th to make up for it. On December 27th, Scott told Amber he was in Boston awaiting a flight to Europe because he was going to be spending New Year's in Paris. The detectives told Amber not to let Scott know that she had contacted them, and they convinced her to start recording their conversations. Detectives were also able to get a wiretap for Scott's phone so they could hear both sides of the conversation. Multiple phone calls between Scott and Amber were recorded, including one where Scott claimed that he carried a photo of Amber in his suit pocket every day, and another in late December where Scott said he wanted to care for Amber for the rest of their lives. On December 31st, Scott called Amber claiming to be standing in front of the Eiffel Tower in Paris watching the fireworks during the New Year's Eve celebration. The truth was, during that phone call, Scott was attending a candlelight vigil for Laci. There was also a phone call on January 1st where Scott claimed to be in Brussels. Um, a dog could be heard barking in the background of the call. Scott said the dog was next to his hotel and it had been barking all night. Scott said, quote, "This dog just keeps barking. I want to kill it." And since we know he was in Modesto at the time and not in Europe, it's most likely that Mackenzie was the barking dog.
Mm.
Detectives approached Scott on January 3rd and showed him a black and white photo of him and Amber. Scott denied it was him. I believe the quote was, "You don't actually think that's me, do you?" The detectives told him the National Enquirer had gotten a hold of the photos and the truth was going to be published soon enough. Scott panicked, and on January 6th, he contacted Amber and told her he lied about traveling recently and that his wife Laci had gone missing right before Christmas. Amber questioned how Laci went missing weeks after Scott claimed to have already lost her. Scott said, quote, "There are different kinds of loss." He denied having anything to do with Laci's disappearance, saying, quote, "I'm not evil like that." When Amber continued to ask questions, Scott would only say he would explain everything after Laci was found. A week or so later, the National Enquirer published their story about Scott's affair. The revelation shocked the public, who, up to that point, seemed to feel nothing but sympathy for Scott. But now that it was proven that Scott was a cheater, public opinion turned so fast that they ended up closing the volunteer center, which was the headquarters for people helping with the search for Laci. But no one in Scott's family seemed to be surprised or even a tiny bit disappointed with the fact that Scott had an affair. Scott's sister Susan refused to call it an affair, saying it was simply a sexual relationship outside of the marriage, which, sounds like an affair to me. But let's check with the experts just to be sure. According to Merriam-Webster, an affair is a romantic or passionate attachment, typically of limited duration. An extramarital is sexual intercourse between a married person and someone who is not that person's spouse. It was an extramarital affair, as opposed to just an affair. So I guess Susan's got me there. But the exact wording isn't what bothered Susan because her family just doesn't seem to think that affairs or extramaritals matter when it comes to a marriage. According to an interview with sfgate.com, Scott's parents said that affairs are common, quote, even among people who are happily married. Now, I know I'm only one person, but as far as I'm concerned, no, they're not. And it's the people who claim that cheating is common that makes cheaters think it's acceptable. It's gross, and honestly, it's insensitive and insulting to your partner. But I'm not surprised that Scott's parents wouldn't care when Scott gets caught having an affair. After all, he was their golden boy who could do no wrong. They once described him as Mr. Perfect. And here's the thing. Amber was not Scott's first time cheating. When Scott was in high school, in his senior year, he dated Stephanie, a girl 2 years younger. Stephanie said Scott always gave her gifts and flowers. He even gave her a ring on Valentine's Day. Nearly 4 months into the relationship, Stephanie heard rumors that Scott had been seen around town holding hands with a girl named Dawn. So Stephanie asked Scott about it. He denied it. He said him and Dawn were just friends. Stephanie questioned the hand holding. Scott said, I hold hands with a lot of my friends. Stephanie broke up with him, and soon after, Scott pretty much immediately started dating Dawn. Did we see that twist coming? We did. We absolutely did. But this was high school. Kids make mistakes. Surely he'd grow out of that behavior, right? Wrong. In the fall of 1997, Scott was completing his degree while Laci was living 133 miles away in Prunedale. Just a reminder, they got married in August. Well, a couple of months after that wedding, Scott casually started seeing a fellow Cal Poly student named Janet. On their first date, Scott showed up at Janet's door carrying 12 bouquets of roses. Not 12 roses, 12 bouquets. So we're talking 144 roses, assuming that my math is correct. Janet said on the date, Scott didn't tell her anything personal about himself. And instead, he just kept asking Janet questions. And she honestly thought it was really refreshing. At the time, Janet was 20, Scott was 26. She said he was generous, always taking her to fancy dinners. He gave her gifts constantly, like flowers and jewelry. Once he even bought her a really expensive dress. He suggested they take a trip to Mexico together, but Janet thought that that was maybe too much too soon. But soon they were talking about their future, which included moving in together, which is incredibly gross given that he was married, newly married at the time. Uh, Also gross is that Scott would often bring his dog Mackenzie with him on dates. You know, the dog that Laci gave him. Janet said Scott was charming and courteous, and the only red flag was a time they went to a rodeo together and they saw some children running around. Scott immediately told Janet he absolutely did not want children because they would get in the way of his intended lifestyle. Nearly 5 months into their relationship, Janet decided to surprise Scott with a late night encounter. One of his roommates let her in, and when Janet tried to get into Scott's bed, she was shocked to find another woman in it. Janet yelled and left the room. Scott said and did nothing. Janet told the roommate she couldn't believe that Scott was cheating on her. The roommate told her, Scott's not cheating on you. Scott's cheating with you. The roommate said he had just recently discovered that Scott was married. And honestly, since the roommate let Janet in, I kind of hope this was his way of making sure Scott got caught cheating, which, to be
Yeah.
honest, I respect. A week later, Scott showed up at Janet's door and apologized. She said she never wanted to see him again. Scott clearly didn't learn his lesson, and soon after, he started a relationship with a Cal Poly student named Katie. They dated casually for nearly 3 months, including a lot of hiking, which involved his dog Mackenzie, again making that poor dog an accomplice in his cheating. Katie asked Scott if he'd ever been married or engaged. Scott told her no. The following day, he called Katie to apologize and say he lied. He had been married, but it ended and his ex wife was currently living in Salinas. Katie claims the relationship hadn't been sexual, but she believed they were becoming serious. Katie was sitting next to Scott at his graduation when a dark haired woman walked up to him and kissed him. Katie realized Scott and that woman were clearly involved. Scott simply turned to Katie and introduced her to Laci
Oh my God.
and
Fucking goal.
said nothing further. A few weeks later, Scott sent Katie a dozen roses with a note that said he had no job and no home. Katie did not respond. She later said she never met any of Scott's family or his friends. And until she saw him on the news years later, she thought he was an only child. And I know these are all examples from when Scott was slightly younger, although early in his marriage. Come on. Maybe he learned his lesson after all that. But I think cheating on your wife for 8 months in the first year of your marriage says a lot about your character.
Yeah.
Were there other women between the college graduation and Amber Fry? Probably. I have no idea, but I absolutely know that Laci deserved better. And if the affairs didn't make your skin crawl enough, according to Scott's half sister Anne, Scott gave Amber's nearly 2 year old daughter a pop up book for Christmas. Thing is, it seems that it was the very book that Anne gave Laci at her baby shower 4 days earlier.
Oh, I didn't know
Did
that. I hadn't heard that. That's awful.
did Scott just happen to buy that same book? Or did he take that gift from his own house? Anne is convinced it's the latter because I'll say it as a a parent at one point, the easiest way to get into a single mother's heart is treating her kid nicely.
Mm-hmm.
That's really going to do it for her. I'm not giving tips. I'm just saying. So the idea that he gave her daughter a gift, the fact that he even thought of it, on one hand, you're like, well, that's nice. But I'm like, and then he just potentially took it out of his own home, a gift that was meant for his own child. Anyway, when the news about the affair came out, Amber Fry was hounded by the press. And honestly, since Amber wasn't aware that Scott was married, the entire fault here is on Scott. Amber thought she was in a committed relationship with a charming guy who could potentially be the man of her dreams. Any anger the public had towards Amber was misplaced and unfair. On January 24th, police held a press conference allowing Amber to speak publicly for the first time. After the press conference, Scott called Amber to tell her how proud he was of her for coming forward and telling her she was really brave. Amber then suggested maybe they stop talking until there's some sort of resolution in Laci's case, and Scott agreed. He then said he hoped to talk to her in the future.
Mm.
He gets caught lying about being married and still somehow thinks he has a shot with her. This man's audacity should be studied. Speaking of which, up until Amber's press conference, Scott had shied away from the cameras. Anytime a journalist asked him for an interview, he denied them, saying he wanted Laci's face out there, not his own. Do we think he avoided cameras because he didn't want Amber finding out he was married? I think it's likely. Uh, because just 4 days after Amber's press conference, Scott finally decided to give his first official interview on Good Morning America with Diane Sawyer. I don't know how Scott thought it was going to help, but it didn't. Diane asked Scott if he mentioned his relationship with Amber to the police. Scott told them he mentioned it the day that Laci went missing. We know that that's a lie. Um, he said Laci knew about the affair and she wasn't angry about it. When Diane questioned the idea that a pregnant woman would be okay discovering her partner's infidelity, Scott just said, quote, "No one knows our relationship but us." I assume Scott believed the interview would make him look better in the eyes of the public. He was sadly mistaken. The entire thing was an absolute disaster. So, to try and repair the damage, Scott invited a group of journalists into his home for one on one interviews. But in the end, he just gave the exact same statements over and over again. He knew nothing about Laci's disappearance. He wasn't involved. Everyone knew about the affair. No one cared about the affair. When asked about Connor's nursery, Scott said he couldn't bring himself to go inside. The door was closed and it would remain so until there was someone to put in there. Well, during the second search warrant, police entered the nursery and found Scott had been using it as storage. In one particularly awkward interview, Scott was asked what he loved about Laci. He said, "You could sum it up by looking at her photograph." And then the journalist kind of like sat there waiting for him to say more. And he kind of like fumbled, trying to like, what am I going to say? And then he just said, "Being able to complete each other. That's it." Now we've come to the incredibly dark part of the episode. So we're just going to try and get through it quickly. On April 14th, 2003, 111 days after Laci was reported missing, female remains washed ashore at Point Isabel, less than 4 miles from Brooks Island, where Scott had been fishing on December 24th. The female's head, hands, feet, and internal organs were all missing. An autopsy determined there were no signs of man made wounds. So maybe the body had been in the water long enough that sea creatures had got to it. The remains were found a mile away from where the remains of a fetus had been found the day earlier. Based on the condition, it is believed the baby remained in the womb for months after the mother was put into the water. An autopsy could not determine the cause of death for either victim. 4 days later, they were officially identified as Laci and Connor Peterson. Laci Peterson was described as sweet, bubbly, outgoing, and popular. She was always smiling, cheerful, and had a real presence. She was just 27 at the time of her death. Before the remains were officially identified, detectives started keeping tighter surveillance on Scott. At the time, Scott was in San Diego visiting his family. On April 18th, police noticed that Scott was out and about kind of earlier that day than he usually had been. It turns out Scott was headed to the Torrey Pines golf course to play around with his father and brothers. Scott later said whenever his family was having a tough time, they would always go and do some sort of group activity. The detectives followed Scott in an unmarked police car, and partway through the journey, they heard Scott make a phone call thanks to a certain wiretap that had been put in place months ago. Scott called his family to say he was being followed, but he thought it was tabloid reporters. He didn't realize it was the police. So Scott tried to evade them. So he started driving erratically, increasing his speed, repeatedly changing his lanes quickly. The detectives became concerned that Scott might end up causing an accident, so they decided it was safest to arrest him right then and there. When they pulled Scott over, they noticed he had dyed his hair and his new goatee blonde. He suddenly had a real striking resemblance to his brother John, whose driver's license was discovered in Scott's car. Scott said he only dyed his hair to become less recognizable in public due to the amount of negative attention he had been receiving. And the only reason he had his brother's driver's license was because the golf course gave discounts to people who lived in the county. To that I say, well, did your brother not need the license to get his own discount? And also, maybe, and this is just an idea, maybe because Scott isn't working and because he's going through a tough time, maybe his family could just chip in and pay for that round of golf. So no discount would be needed. Huh? The license excuse sounds flimsy to me. And if the change in appearance and the family ID wasn't strange enough, other things found in the car include an axe, a scuba mask, Viagra, a shovel, binoculars, rope, a cooking grill, camping gear, sleeping pills, a water purifier, 16 music CDs, a fishing rod and reel, scissors, leather gloves, a hammock, folding knives, 2 California guidebooks, clothes, and 12 pairs of shoes, including flip-flops, boots, and dress shoes. There were also 6 credit cards, 4 cell phones, and nearly $15,000 cash, including US dollars and Mexican pesos. The cash? Oh, his family says Scott had recently sold his truck to his brother. He just hadn't had the chance to go to the bank yet to deposit it.
Did his brother
Um,
pay in pesos?
well, that's the other thing. I'm like, why was there also pesos? I don't know. Since San Diego was less than 20 miles from the border, detectives believed that Scott was planning to flee to Mexico. Scott and his family deny this, saying they have no idea where the whole flee to Mexico idea ever even came from. Oh, I don't know. Maybe they got the idea after Scott completely changed his appearance to match his brother's ID, which was in his possession, along with camping and survival gear and a ton of cash, including Mexican pesos. I mean, it's not an extreme leap to believe he might be running. Do I, a non professional, believe that Scott Pearson was fleeing Mexico prior to his arrest? No, I don't. Do I think he was prepared to flee to either Mexico or somewhere in the California wilderness in case he needed to? Absolutely, I do. but I'm only speculating. While Scott was being transferred back to Modesto, detectives got the call that Laci and Connor had officially been identified. Soon after, the detectives stopped at In N Out to get some food. They said Scott ate an entire meal, which they felt was odd given the news he had just received. I mean, I don't know. Everyone grieves in their own way. I'm sure some people can't eat at all, and some maybe can't stop eating. Who knows? Um, I think he's done so many other sketchy things that, for one thing, I'm going to let this one go. Um, when they arrived at the jail, there was a crowd of 250 angry people shouting threats at Scott. And they arrived at that jail at like midnight. So it's wild that all these people were waiting. Scott Peterson was officially charged with 2 counts of capital murder. He pleaded not guilty. At first, Scott was given a public defender, but 2 weeks later, his family hired Mark Garagos, a lawyer who'd been on The Larry King Show almost daily since Laci's disappearance, telling the world that Scott was innocent. His trial was set for the summer of 2004, but for us, the trial will convene in part two. Police were convinced that Scott wanted out of his marriage, so he strangled or smothered Laci, weighing her down at her wrists and ankles with homemade anchors, and then dumping her body into the bay. Scott and most of the Peterson family believe that the police ignored potential leads and evidence simply because they had tunnel vision that Scott was guilty. Scott maintains his innocence. In part one, we've proved that Scott is a liar and a cheater. The big question remains, is Scott Peterson a killer? Stay tuned for our next episode when we'll discuss the trial, some background on the Peterson family, and the evidence the family claims proves that Scott is innocent. Reporting for part one, I'm Christy Oxborrow.
Well, listen, let's take a quick break, hit the can, grab a drink, and I'll give some of my thoughts on the part one episode of Laci Peterson on this episode of True Crime and Cocktails. All right, clap two on three. One, two, three. Welcome back to this episode of True Crime and Cocktails. We're, of course, discussing Laci Peterson. Oh, God, so much to get to. Still so
Yeah.
much to get to. You brought up lima beans, and I wrote down Charlie Sheen, Ben Vereen, shrink to the size of a lima bean. Shout out to the brain of Pinky and the Brain fame from, of course, hit animated series Animaniacs. We have pay for play contracts.
I'm sorry, can I just get one more of those hit? The way you said the word hit there?
Hit.
Yes. 'Cause there was
There was a
like
Y in it,
there was a very nice stank to it. Not like a dirty stank, but like there was a pleasant stank to
of
it.
course. Pleasant stank.
I loved it a lot.
Anyway, anytime I hear Charlie Sheen, Ben Vereen, or Lima Bean, those words, those trigger that in my head.
It's nice to hear Ben Vereen getting acknowledgement.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
Zoobily
Zoobly
zoo,
zoo.
zoobily
Zoobly
zoo.
zoo.
Magic and wonder are
I'm
waiting
waiting
for
for
you.
you.
Listen, we're talking about the death of a pregnant woman. We gotta
It's
try and keep it
again,
light.
this is why when they were like Scott was making jokes and I'm like,
Yeah.
I make jokes when I'm uncomfortable, so I kind of understand. So I won't let many things go with this man. That I'll let go. I'm like
Listen,
uncomfortable. Okay.
yeah, I'm gonna get into more of that in a minute. But yes, I know. Chandler Bing, I make jokes when I'm uncomfortable. It's
Yeah.
not crazy. Then I just wrote down Candy Bergen. We're going there again. The answer is yes. Um,
Going
here's
there again.
well, just it's just hilarious. Weird Al, I always thought he was Canadian. I don't know why. I just always thought he was
Interesting.
Canadian. Yeah,
He reads Midwest to me,
which is kind of Canadian.
which is probably why we're both like, that makes sense. But yeah, apparently,
Yeah.
California.
Something I just thought of, because obviously as a person who consumes a lot of true crime, I'm familiar with the Laci Peterson case.
Sure. Yeah.
Something that either struck me before and I pushed it from my brain because it's too bleak, or I've never thought of before. Isn't it really fucking sad that they did a nautical theme in that baby's bedroom?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then this is,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know. I may have thought of that before, and my brain was just like, you don't need to keep that. That's very sad. Um, Okay. Hold on, stand by. Just go with me here. Obviously, next week I'm going to have much more in-depth thoughts about this overall case, but I just wanted to make sure there was nothing specific that I needed to say now, much like Charlie Sheen Ben Vereen shrink to the size of a lima bean. That was definitely imperative. What a ding dong.
Hey,
Um,
you and me both, baby. I'm the one that's like, these notes are so long. What are we gonna do? Do you want to hear about California?
I get it, man. Yes, obviously this story about the other woman, pregnant woman who's 9 months pregnant, Evelyn, and of course her son Alex. Yes, it's the tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme. If you are not white, you're not going to get the same kind of attention from the police, attention from the media. It's so sad and awful. And it's sad that there's just more and more data that makes that, it's like that's something that you don't want to be true. You know what I mean? But
Sure.
unfortunately, we've got scads of data backing that up. Um, okay, Scott asking if the police are going to bring out the cadaver dogs. This is another moment for me, much like you, and you said it at the time too. I'm like, I don't ever want to give him a break, to be clear. I think this
Yeah.
man is, at best, a psychopath. At best.
Sure.
Um, at worst, he's a psychotic killer. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like I think that but cadaver dogs, I was like, I could see myself saying something like that too. Like I didn't mean,
Mhm.
but to your point, it was like a sniffer dog. But so that's one I agree that I'm like, I can kind of give him that. Like there are those moments where with him specifically that you go, I I could give him that. Like that one, to your
Sure.
point, it's like jokes when you get uncomfortable. Yeah, I could give him that one too. And then there's things like the cheating and the affairs and the lying and the love bombing, and it's like,
Mhm.
dude. I'm fascinated by him from a
Mm.
psychologist hat perspective.
Oh my God, of course. The fact that so many women just received so many roses from him.
Yeah,
Like
somewhere along the way, he really got programmed that that was what you do, you
yeah,
know?
and always roses, specifically roses. And I was like, okay, because they're the most romantic flower. Is that it?
Yeah.
Oh,
And here's two things back to back. You're going to love this. First thing, Scott went back to the bay 5 times just to look at the water and then leave. Psychologist hat, we know that quite often killers will go back to the scene of the crime after
sure.
they've done it. So that's me going, oh, that's one in the psychotic killer box. Um, But then you said there was a Trader Joe's receipt showing that she did the groceries on December 23rd and that that wasn't her plan for the 24th. I'm not trying to defend him, but my defense of him is not flattering. I was just like, in my mind, I was like, have I ever been with a man that didn't notice that I did a full load of groceries and then the next day was like, you doing groceries today? Yeah. I could buy that he just fucked that up,
Sure.
because
Well,
he was unobservant and whatever. And you could say, but Lauren, he went into the fridge to get out the pizza. He would have seen the groceries. Have you lived with one of them?
mm,
God bless yous. And I've said this before. Men have so many strengths.
yeah,
I would say
observance.
observance for
Not,
not all,
not
but
all.
many. Again, these are the things that King of Queens episodes are written about. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a comment. So again,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to give him a break or take his
Mm,
side. Trust me. But that was another one of those things where I was like, I could buy that he just didn't notice or he fucked up or whatever. If this is the same kind of man that's like allowing his very pregnant wife to do groceries alone, allowing his very pregnant wife to go and pick up the Christmas gift he was supposed to from a farm. I was like, it sounds like it might have been something big, heavy. She's pregnant. Then do I believe that if then I believe even more that that kind of man could have just not paid attention or whatever the fuck, right?
sure.
Um,
My thing about the groceries, I haven't found, but I want to know, did he possibly go with her?
well, that's a good question. Well, that would
Because
change
they
things.
were together for sure because she had a doctor's appointment that day and he went with her. So I just want to know, did did he go with her? Or was it a he left work to go to the appointment and then they went their separate ways? I could see that too. But I just kept wondering, did he go with her? Because it wouldn't surprise me if he was there, but she's the one that signed for it.
It would be pretty ballsy. I mean, he's pretty ballsy in general, so I'm not saying that this is impossible, but it would be pretty ballsy to say she was doing groceries when he had been grocery shopping with her the day before. Again, I'm not saying that he didn't do that. I'm not saying he didn't do any of it, to be
Oh,
clear.
yeah, I would just like to know if he was there. But of course, if she signed for it, we can't tell if he was there.
Right.
I doubt
Unless
they,
there was surveillance cameras, but they wouldn't have
yeah,
thought that that mattered, I'm sure, at the
yeah.
time.
Oh, there's no chance they would have gone to like, even gone to Trader Joe's and been like, hey, did you see these people? Was she alone or was he with her? Because at the time, right away, they were like, well, we need to figure out how someone got her from your home. They weren't
Right.
thinking like, oh, it was him. It was months later that they were like, this guy ain't right.
Well, he's not, regardless of whether or not, you know, whether or not he physically killed her, he's not right. Um, I'll get more into my own theories later. But anyway, um, the detail from this case that will haunt me to the day I die, and in my opinion, and this is a bold statement, but guess what? That's what we do here. I think the detail for me that turned me on him the most, that I think could have been the detail to turn a jury, was calling from fucking Lacey's vigil and pretending he was at the Eiffel Tower.
Mhm.
That to me, because one of the things I've always said about Scott Peterson was this: to keep the lie going to this woman that you're cheating with
Yeah.
after Lacey has gone missing. If he legitimately had nothing to do with it, one would think or one would hope that that man would go, "Hey, Amber, I've got at even just saying, got some family stuff that came up. I'm not gonna be able to see you anymore." Right? Like just like
Nip
I
it
gotta
in the
cut
butt,
all
like cut it
this.
down. Yeah.
Gotta nip it. That's giving him a lot of grace that isn't deserved. One would hope that he would call the woman and say, I've lied to you. I am married and my wife has gone missing and I need to focus on this and I'm sorry. That I feel like for anyone who's doing this level of cheating, probably not a realistic expectation. But I think the fact that he didn't call her right away and say, hey, I've had some stuff come up in my life. I can no longer see you. Or, I mean, this is more of a modern thing, but just ghost her. Surprise, like men
Stop
do that
calling.
now.
Don't pick up the phone
Just don't pick
and
up the
stop
phone.
calling.
Um, that feels incriminating. Like it feels again like it's like you've taken the lie to such another level at that point. You are willing to, that makes you seem guilty. Um, anyway, put a pin in that. The family saying things like even people in happy relationships cheat. What programming?
I
What
know.
programming?
I
Because
know.
again, now I know, by the way, especially for our younger listeners, it was a different time. Open relationships absolutely happened. They've always happened, but it was
Sure.
nowhere near the same kind of level or acceptance that exists now. I don't think the
Yeah.
term polyamory existed then.
Oh,
Um,
no.
so it was a much more, you know, archaic view of, or some could call archaic view. But I think the bottom line then and now, anybody who's in one of those dynamics will say it's all about communication and honesty. So I think the big thing that people bristle against, or I think that that's important to remember, is that it's like it's the lying. Like it's like yes, we can all accept that some people want to live in relationships where they are not monogamous. They want and they have partners that also want to not be monogamous. We can all wrap our heads around that. But
Yeah.
those relationships will also dissolve if one of them starts lying to the other person, right? So it's like
Yes.
again, the cheating and the level of cheating this man was doing. The story about him dating Katie and then Lacey coming in at the graduation, kissing him and him introducing her. That takes a level again of like this psychopath I'm not being glib. Literally, sociopath, maybe. I don't know. I think this is dipping over into psychopathy because that is a level that's like beyond narcissism. You know what I mean? Like we're dipping over. And I
Mm.
also think, and listen, I don't know what that interaction was for Katie, and I am in no way suggesting that Katie did anything wrong
No,
by not by not I'm assuming she didn't cause a scene. Um,
I assume.
we don't know, but and God bless. Again, no judgment. I would just like to speak for myself, where had it been me, and I'm not saying this is better. I'm just saying it's if it had been me. Oh man, man, oh man. I don't yell. I'm not a yeller. Like I've yelled a couple of
Mm.
times in relationships. It's very rare for me. It's an uncomfortable place. I don't like being
Oh,
angry. I don't
yeah.
like the feeling of being angry.
I get that. I get
I
that.
think I would have blown a hole in the side of the world.
There's not a fucking chance that I'm not gonna see them kiss and go, what the fuck is this? Not a chance. I don't, this is not something you take in public if you want there to be what
100%.
calm, decorum. Like,
Well,
there's
that's
just,
the thing.
that's not, nope.
He's playing so fast and loose by going out publicly with these other women. That always
Yeah.
blows my mind about cheaters in general when they're just really going out and like rolling the dice. The
Yeah.
whole true narcissism, like I'm above the law thing. It's wild. But anyway, again, no shade to Katie. However, Katie chose to handle it was right for her. Full respect. Women for women.
Oh
Fuck that
yeah,
guy.
good for her. Good for her for being better about it than I would have
Yeah,
been.
I would have
Because
just
there's not
been
a chance.
no,
Oh, I everybody
no.
in that place would have known. It's also wild that she was even there. That like, did he invite her? Or was she like, obviously you're graduating, I'm gonna be here. And there was he was like, yeah, let's sit together.
Again, there's so much. It's just it's just wild. It's just
Yeah.
wild on every level. The detail of him giving the book that his half sister says she gave Lacey at her bridal shower. I may have known that detail. I've forgotten that detail. That is again, these are the details where you go, he's not even good at it. Like it's like you're not even convincing anybody. Saying that it was like I haven't set foot into Connor's room. He was actually using it as storage. Like it's
Yeah.
so depraved. And the bottom line is this, and I'm gonna show my hand very quickly, and then I'm gonna finish these up because we're gonna talk about it more at the end of the next episode. But and listen, people can come for me, but listen to what I'm saying. I I am not saying I don't think that Scott Peterson killed Lacey. I am in no way saying I think that this man is innocent of the crime. He didn't commit the crime or anything. I think in a court of law, there was no evidence. The evidence was all circumstantial. So I think many things, including one, it's miraculous that he didn't try harder to not incriminate himself because,
Yeah.
again, there are a few different steps. That man would not be in jail. If he had made a few different choices along the way in how he handled himself after she went missing, he wouldn't be
Mm.
in jail. And guess what? There is a world in which he didn't do it. But guess what? He fucked himself so hard
Oh
by
yeah.
managing to make himself the most hateable human
Yeah.
on the planet. But
Yeah.
anyway, I'll get more again. There's more to come and but that's again, I'm in no way saying that I think he's innocent. All I'm saying is do I think there's reasonable doubt? Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
And crazy. His own he fucked himself. I really do believe that. Um now you said this man's audacity should be studied. And I wrote down it has been in the DSM-5, which of course is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders. It has. It's just me
Mm.
trying to decide which I think he is, but he's in there without question. Um okay. Very quickly, and I won't belabor it. The bodies.
Mm.
The
Hmm.
head never being found. The hands and feet, depending on how it was weighted or what this was or whatever, okay.
Sure.
The only thing I can think, go with me for a quick second. There's a movie called Shallow Grave starring a young Ewan McGregor. It is one of my favorite movies. It's very dark, and it says a lot about me that it's one of my favorite movies, but I think the performances are astounding. In the movie, and this isn't really a spoiler because it happens in the first few minutes, it also came out in the 90s. Um,
Hmm.
these three roommates, they have a fourth roommate who moves in, who's new, and they find him dead. And he also has all of this money, like millions of dollars, and they have this choice where they're like, do we call the police and give all of this over, or do we maybe hide this body and keep the money?
Sure.
And in that movie, one of the things that they felt they needed to do was get rid of the hands and feet because of fingerprints and footprints
Mm.
and get rid of the head. And so one of them in the movie works at a hospital where there's an incinerator, and they take those things and throw them in the incinerator to make it harder to identify that body.
Of
Now,
course.
again, DNA did exist at that time, but it was early days, I feel like, and now it would be different. But long story short, this is a long roundabout way of saying it just it's that's immediately what I thought of when I first heard about that detail, and I was like, did that guy watch or whoever, but let's say it was Scott, did he watch that movie too and think this is just what you do? Like when his parents kept telling him his whole life that people cheat for any reason, if even if you're happy.
Oh,
Was
sure.
this also one of those things where it was like that's just what you do to make sure that it's harder to identify the body? I'm throwing that into the mix just because there's details about that specific that feel there's no benefit for him to like keep the head. There's no
Oh,
benefit.
sure.
Like, I don't know what he would. I mean, I guess we could get into trophies and whatnot, but then I'm like, I don't know. He wanted, if we're psychologist hatting, it's like he wanted to be rid of that issue. And I hate to
Mm.
refer to her
Of
and
course.
Connor that way. It's disgusting. I'm putting it through his disgusting lens. He wanted to be rid of that issue. That's not, I don't think that then the MO is going to be like, I need to keep part of this. And I don't feel like, you know, I can believe that hands and feet, something could happen. I don't know again what kind of sea life is there, etc. But do I think that like her entire head is just going to get to disappear? I don't. And then I just go, is there any other options? Is there any other possibilities of who could have done this? And then that brings us to episode two.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I think if do I think that certain parts could be removed for the sake of trying to not like to avoid identification? I mean, I could see that. I don't think any were kept. I mean, who knows? But I just assume they were put in different places
Yeah.
is kind of the thought that I have. And then I'm also like, for your movie,
Mhm.
why didn't they just put the whole body in the incinerator?
Because how are they going to get it in there without somebody noticing?
Well, if we're doing bits and parts, we're gonna have to cut the body up more.
Yeah, I think that um it would be hard to move a torso without being noticed, but
That
I
is a
hear you.
that is a good point. That is a good point.
Yeah.
This is why we don't murder.
Fuck no. There's so many reasons. Oh my God, I
Yeah.
can't kill a spider. I don't think I could kill a human. My God. Anyway, listen, here's the point, folks. Tune in next week for Laci Peterson, part two. We're gonna get into all of this and more because again, um, Christy has left it with a wonderful cliffhanger, and I've also teased that I've got questions.
So
I've
many
got questions
questions.
when it comes to this case and what I think may or may not have happened. Um, so yeah, join us next week for the triumphant second part of this horrific case. And if you haven't already, give us a follow on the socials on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at True Crime and Cocktails, on Twitter at Not Detectives. If you want that bonus content, go over to patreon.com/True Crime and Cocktails to learn more about our subscription-based service over there. And of course, the only place for official True Crime and Cocktails merch is, of course, truecrewmerch.com. So check that out as well if you're interested. we've already talked about what next week's episode is. So
We
all
have.
I have to ask you is, Christy, do you want to say goodnight to the people?
Um, is Sleep Slut funny again yet?
Hell yeah, it is.